with when it comes to healing themselves, healing relations with each other, with Mother Earth, is Anishnabeg Outreach. And I'm just honored to have Stephen Jackson, who's the CEO, join me today. And Anishnabeg Outreach operates in Kitchener-Waterloo, and now they've expanded to Guelph, but really do it worldwide. If you haven't had an opportunity to access some of the amazing tools that they're offering folks to access online, please do so. But I'm going to let Stephen talk about all of that rather than have me talk about it. But I'll just say that every time I have the opportunity to either meet with Stephen in person or online, I am just so impressed with the work that you're doing and just the growth of the services and supports that you're offering people, Stephen. So I was thinking of just opening maybe with just, if I was going to ask you a little bit about what you think about National Indigenous Peoples Day, but I want to maybe give you an opportunity first to say, you know, what Anishnabeg Outreach does, like what your vision is and how it fits into this day.
And you're saying we only have 30 minutes for this answer. Is that what you're doing?
I know, you could talk about this for hours.
Yeah, very much so. For me, and to be honest, I love this day. I'm glad the recognition is there because a lot of it's about raising awareness, right? With 40 million Canadians and all newcomers to Canada too. For me, it's sort of this juxtaposition of, 500 years of trauma, but 500 more years coming of hope. Because for me, that's what National People Indigenous Day is all about. It's about the future hope of not having what's happened before, but really what possible could happen going forward, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, and you've used all the words. It's relationship, it's partnership, it's helping people heal. And the work that we do isn't just for Indigenous people, it's actually for all people of Canada and eventually the world as we go forward with it, with the mental health thing and all the other things that we're doing.
Yeah, I've been particularly impressed with the online work you're doing, but maybe before we get to that, I wonder, can you just describe like your facility in KW is such an amazing place, both inside and the grounds outside. So for folks who haven't had an opportunity to actually physically be at Anishnabeg Outreach, can you describe that a bit for folks?
I think this is like the best working place ever. And I know that I'm competing against like multi-billion-dollar tech companies that have big budgets for it. It's a place where people can work anywhere, work together, collaborate. There are no offices, no walls. So you can work on the grass, you can work on logs, you can work on rocks, that sounds kind of weird and all, but it actually delivers out the creative piece. My belief in structure is that structures themselves, if you design them correctly, are healing. Like I'm sure you've probably been part of the bathroom tour and all the other things, right? Like our bathrooms are beautiful. Every space should be like opening a Christmas present so that no matter where you are, as an Indigenous person that may have reticent about various buildings or facilities, you want to be there and spend time there. The most recent thing we added is a kids' playhouse. It's 8 feet by 12 feet or something. It's going to be marvelous on the front lawn and stuff. It looks like one of those little tiny homes almost, but it's a kids' playhouse.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And what motivated you to start the Anishnabeg Outreach? And, I guess I'll just start with that. What motivated you to start it? And what's your vision for the space as you bring people together there?
Oh, perfect. Well, I used to be corporate, head of HR, things like that. So I worked my way up in companies for quite a few years or consulting. And it was a turnaround project. There was a small Indigenous organization that was an employment center that needed help with processes to fix funding and all the other things. And it was a 1-year contract to fix it. I think I was done in 3 months because I figured I was going to be done early. I was done in 3 months, and then it became a passion project. Because imagine, what if you just help Indigenous people heal? If you just help them heal, the world's available to them. If you help companies understand how to embrace them as a talent pool, then, I mean, a lot of other things, I will say there's water under the bridge, of course, but you're well aware of baby boomer retirements and all the crisis and that shortfall of 1 million workers and everything else. That's now, you know, all you really have to do is be healed in order to get gainfully employed. We're in a crisis with that, of course. I mean, inflation, all the rest, but it is Canada's opportunity to achieve reconciliation. It's Canada's opportunity to achieve equity. And it's never happened before. And it's only because of workers leaving the workforce in the millions. And what I liken this to, I liken it to a gold rush, or it's a talent rush is what it really is. It's the same as women entering the workforce in the 70s and the 80s. There hasn't been a population available before. But can you imagine if we took that same tool set that we're going to use for Indigenous people and we gave it to all the agencies and shelter systems and children in care? You could, if you heal those people, because there's a pipeline. The pipeline goes from children in care, they get traumatized somewhere along the way. They go on at about a 50% rate to all the shelter systems, 50% rate for addictions, 50% rate for homelessness, and also a 50% rate for incarceration. If you simply healed them at the beginning, they would never get to those other end, to the back end of it. You could end homelessness, not completely, but greatly reduce it. And you know how much the government spends on homelessness in any region or across the country. It's billions of dollars. It'd be nice to put that towards healthcare.
Right. And so when you talk about the healing process, what does that look like for somebody who, you know, walks up those front steps and says, you know, hey, I need help?
Well, we built the building so that people want to come in the building. We built a learning, we partnered with a tech company called Harlot. They built a learning management system with us or for us. And basically, we now have the ability to give back culture, to have access to artifacts that are normally locked behind walls in museums. 3D scans, you can either print them or you can see them. They are language access, access to programming for 0 to 6-year-olds, programming for students in school so they can excel either through tutoring, through sports, or through STEM. And we're building a new module set for seniors so that basically we have from birth to death now covered in sort of the system that we built. And I view all those as just doors and windows in. The real magic, I think, happens around essential life skills. So things that we all have, we got them from our family, our parents, our friends, whatever. We learned these essential life skills. Not everyone had that same, I guess, access to those. But we can simply turn those into training. We can teach anyone anything. And same with mental health. Instead of going to a therapist, why don't we just teach you how to heal yourself through a comprehensive set of training modules that enables you to do all the heavy, I mean, at the end of the day, mental health work is your work anyway. Someone's not going to come with a magic wand and say, oh, you're healed. That doesn't work that way. You have to do all the work. You have to do all the processing. You have to sort everything out because therapists don't give you the answers. You need to develop the answers. Well, we can just teach you how to do that. And if we can do that, we can make this available to every reserve, every friendship center, every shelter across the country, so that we can actually take those as a cost and turn them into GDP. They're that net new resource that would be fully unemployable until we heal them.
And so can you talk a little bit about, so some of the work you do is in this physical space you're in, and I'd like you to talk about the gardens a little bit, just because I was just blown away by your gardens, and then talk about the online spaces you're creating for people who, you know, can't come in person.
Absolutely. Well, I'll show you the online space if you want, or I'll show your your participants, the online space, so they can see that. The garden is incredible. It was a partnership with the diocese out of Hamilton and St. Mary's Catholic Church initially, because they own the farm. They lent us a chunk of the farm, so we have a lease on it now, long-term lease. Last year, I was hoping to build a greenhouse. That was the whole purpose of the farm, space for a greenhouse to sit. And I found a number of properties that were going to be given to me for that purpose. The greenhouse didn't quite pan out because of the expense of it. It was too expensive to actually raise the capital for it, even though it raises a lot of food for people. So we started gardening last year. Last year, if anyone who was at the garden will tell you, we grew weeds. We grew weeds taller than me. I'm 6'4". So really big weeds, right? And food. We grew about 10,000 or 10 tons of food last year, right? But this year, it's probably going to be closer to 40 or 50 tons of food. And we have these ancient indigenous squash the museum gave us. It's, for me, the farm, it's called the Spirit Garden for All. That's what the name of it is. But the farm itself is really just about partnerships and relationships, is bringing people together. Because early on, when I was starting AO and building it up, everyone wants to achieve reconciliation. Like every single person I've ever spoken to says, I would like to do something for reconciliation. And in the same breath, they say, but I don't know where to start or how. Well, the how is easy. We create vehicles for it. Tutoring, the farm, simply coming out and gardening on Fridays with us to weed, or we're better at weeding now. I partnered with, actually out of Guelph, I partnered with Omafra. I believe they're in Guelph. Yes. So those folks are teaching us how to farm. We're using that expertise, and it's eventually going to become part of the farming school, right? So this thing started as a bunch of just, we'll grow a bunch of stuff, we'll feed a bunch of people, and the people we're feeding, it's like 1,500 people last year. We have a program called Spirit Bundles that we deliver out to families, about 450 families. Last year, we donated about 1.5 million in food, clothing. Now Amazon's giving us things to give to people. Like, it just comes from everywhere. And to me, that's what reconciliation is. It's partnerships to simply help people or give people hope, so that we have the opportunity to teach them a skill that will give them a future.
Yeah, as I'm hearing you talk about that, like, so many people talk about the challenges of the climate crisis, and especially how it's going to affect food, and also food inflation, which, by the way, is directly connected to the climate crisis, even though it doesn't get talked about enough, just affecting like affordability for people, like a real affordability crisis. Yeah. And it feels like through the farm, you're addressing just so many multiple issues that are directly affecting our society. And I'm curious, like, in your words, like, why the farm? Like, when you started the farm, like, what was your vision for the farm, and what it would accomplish as you started it?
Well, the farm was really designed it was initially for that greenhouse that never panned out yet due to lack of funding, but it started out as a way to bring community together to do something as simple as, let's just grow food. And it turned out to be a lot of food. And this year it's going to be way more food. But businesses now are becoming part of this thing. We partnered with an organization. I was just there this afternoon, actually, in a meeting with them. They're going to help us build a house. Wow. It's not just going to be a house. It's also going to be a school, so we can actually teach Indigenous people how to farm. Because if we can teach Indigenous people the practices of farming, and we can help them buy farms, once they get that skill set, they can buy Canada back 100 acres at a time. It's the penultimate reconciliation project practice, right? The Home Depot partnered with us this year. They're growing thousands of plants that we're going to put into the vegetable part of the garden. Other organizations are also coming on board to, like Sustainable Waterloo Region, for instance. They're doing a microforest. They like to plant microforests, so that's what Sustainable Waterloo Region does. However, our microforest is going to be an orchard, so we can feed people with it. So berries and fruit-bearing trees, right? Yeah, the school next to us is going to build a shed for us in their shop. So we have a place, when we get a tractor, we're hoping for the federal government we applied for a grant with them through their life, it's an infrastructure fund, in order to get that piece of equipment so we can actually do the real farming, because right now we have to hire out farmers to do it, right? So,
Right.
but it's just every time there's a problem, it's like playing chess. Whenever you have a problem, you just have to come up with a solution. Doesn't matter what the solution is. So, like every other person, and you were talking about climate crisis a minute ago, you know what our weather's been like. We had rain in the last like 4 weeks, a really big one, which was kind of nice, but I didn't have any water. And then all of a sudden, a whole bunch of farmers and other people like OMAFRA and a bunch of others started giving me big containers, like 500-gallon containers. The city of Kitchener gave me a couple of 500-gallon containers. City of Kitchener and Waterloo are going to fill those containers for me so that when we plant all those plants that are coming from the Home Depot, from all the nurseries, and I mean, it's great. The nurseries are giving us their leftover plants they're not selling. They normally get thrown away. We'll put them in the ground, we'll water them. They'll bear food for the people that come to harvest with us.
Yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and food and farming has been a part of my whole life. And one of the things I love about it is the way you build community through food. And I think that's such a big part of reconciliation and healing, as we've been talking about.
Yeah.
I wanted to shift gears a little bit because I know you've taken me through your online portals, especially the ways in which you're addressing the mental health crisis. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk a bit more about mental health, healing, and how you're trying to make the tools that you have available to people who, don't live in KW or don't live in Guelph, don't live in this region.
I'll show it to you. It's going to share my screen.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
So this is the actual learning management system that Harlan built with us and for us. And we think of reconciliation in terms of 3 pillars. First pillar, help Indigenous people heal, language, culture, and help rebuild families, rebuild community. If you do that, they're basically whole. You have to do the second pillar. And the second pillar really is for corporate Canada or business Canada. You have to teach them how to embrace that talent pool and work with that talent pool. So we do reconciliation training for that. And then the third pillar is actually raise awareness with 40 million Canadians. And that's all that pillar is. So we do a lot of cause games with OHL teams. We partner with the Leafs, the Raptors, the Jays, like sports teams, right? And venues like Center in the Square or places like that. This is the coolest thing I have ever seen. It's also the world's largest repository of Indigenous artifacts, virtual artifacts. This is, I'll just show you one, and of course, all of your viewers. This is really partnerships with museums around the world. And Dragon's Lab out of University of Waterloo. We scan artifacts at museums, and then we can 3D print them. And you can make them big, small, you can go inside of them, you can do whatever you want with these things, right? And there are hundreds. Some of the artifacts that we scanned were from 900 AD, and they were equipment to make maple syrup from maple trees made out of birch bark and containers, right? Can you imagine the industry that Indigenous people had in 900 that was transferred to Quebec people to become the maple syrup industry that it is today, right? Just incredible, mind-boggling. And then with this, we also have a partnership with National STEM organization, Let's Talk Science. They're going to put curriculum around this. We can now ship this to every school board in the country so that we can raise awareness multi-generationally. This is all the things around culture that we provided. So there's teachings, just a lot of stuff that are important for Indigenous people. story songs, history, how to make things like ribbon dresses or moccasins or dream catchers or whatever else people are interested in, right? Recipes that are traditional and non-traditional. Languages. The first one we have is Ojibwe, but as we get funding or when we receive funding, we'll actually add more languages to this and make them more robust. This is all the early years program. So basically people can, variety of things for parents or new parents that are more colonial based, but also all the land-based pieces. And then we get into the parts for youth. So STEM, hardest subjects in school, generally speaking. A tutoring program that we launched in partnership with the Hallman Foundation. And then all of our partnerships on sports. And these are just videos that teach you how to play a sport fundamental. So we have a whole herd on hockey. We have a bunch on soccer, basketball, you name it. These are all partnerships too. So it's partnerships with the Leafs, the Raptors, the Jays, OHL teams, Golf Canada, Wrestling Canada, things like that, right? And then we get into wellness, and then we get into where the world changes. I was reading an article out of Israel probably about 6 months ago now. It basically said that if you give people, it was an efficacy article, if you give people essential life skills and intensive mental health therapy, their future, they can have anything and be anything. I believe that. If you also give them a bit of job readiness training, because we partnered with Accenture for that, their job readiness courses, they've offered us their library and their upskilling courses, which are more like software type things. Yeah, why don't you pick a category? We'll take a quick look at one.
Okay, I'm gonna pick one, but Stephen, before I do that, can you tell people where they can access this amazing, all this knowledge that you have here?
So we haven't launched this yet. We're going to launch this probably it's here, it's available, it's on our website, but you have to register for it. Yeah. So the idea is we are going to, well, we've partnered with dozens and dozens and dozens of agencies, like from Southwestern Ontario, Central Ontario, like shelters, children in care, those types of places, homeless shelters, things like that, with the idea that we're going to pilot and identify. So this was designed for a pregnant teen shelter. So we have about 100 sort of courses here, and that's why they're all sort of pregnant teen related. Mm-hmm. But the other ones would be relevant. So we're probably going to have about 300 or 400 by the time we're done with all those various other places. But we'll have the universe of essential life skills that any child needs or any youth needs to succeed. And they can just come in and pick one. But by doing the partnership, we're going to pilot over the next year with them, with all of those agencies, and those agencies will use it with all their client groups so that their clients have the life skills they need, again, to thrive in any urban center, right? Go ahead and pick one.
Okay, I'm going to pick emotional health.
Okay, everyone picks emotional
in front of me. And there we go. We all need emotional health after the pandemic, right? And so, you talked about 500 years of trauma. It's going to take a lot of emotional health to heal that moving forward, right?
Yeah, just pick one.
Mental health.
All right. Oh, there we go. I'm curious to what this one is.
Everyone, this is an emotional health module focusing in on mental health. A brief overview of the topics being covered in this module are mental health continuum and zones of regulation, stigmatization and destigmatization, addictions, psychoeducation, and coping strategies. The goal of this module is to provide you with the ability to establish an understanding of what mental health means to you.
So I'm not going to go through all of this. I'm just going to show you what you would learn. This one's about 10 minutes long. They range in 4 to 10 minutes. They're sort of PDF videos that we've created, but we've also created PowerPoints that go with them that are sort of worksheets that help people get experiential work with it, right? And solve things, opportunities, right? And that's kind of what they look like. They're relatively small in nature. They're 4 to 10 minutes. We've also created another set that are actually full mental health. So this is life skills, and there's just about 100 life skills there. We've also created a virtual mental health system that will let people heal themselves. And if we go into this, let me see if I got one here that I can open up. Yeah. So this one's really around, if you think about people in all those situations reserved elsewhere, they might lack effective communication. They might lack effective digital communication, like online communication. They might trust the wrong people or not know how to build trusting relationships. They might have less than perfect personal or relationship-based boundaries. And they have a lot of regrets, and their regrets typically are in two forms. The first one being they regret, not doing something that would have benefited them, or doing something that in fact harmed them or got them into trouble, right? And then we just teach them problem solving. But we can just teach all of this. This is easy. This is just training. I mean, this is 4 times as long as those other courses you saw. So these are about 30 minutes in duration. And there's about 10 worksheets, because the idea is this is all experiential learning, right? You want to practice the skill so you get good at it. You find a trusted partner, a parent, family member, maybe a partner at the agency, and go from there. And the other one that we start with is, of course, spirit building. This just teaches you how to build your spirit so you can overcome anything. And we hope to have these all launched sometime in the October, September timeframe with our partner agencies. And the nice thing is, once we start partnering with agencies, they get access to the whole system. So they also learn about raising awareness with Indigenous, right? And that cultural appreciation, not appropriation, but appreciation piece.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I know we're quickly running out of time, and it's amazing how fast 30 minutes can go. And I know when you and I've met before in the past, like I always end our meetings thinking, oh gosh, we could be meeting for another hour or two. But I want to close a little bit. Just I think it'd be irresponsible as me as a politician not to ask you, like, so Queen's Park, we've risen for the summer, and we're all back in our ridings, meeting with constituents, and listening to people and thinking about what we want to bring back to Queen's Park when we reconvene in September. And I'm curious from an Indigenous perspective, from a reconciliation perspective, what would you ask of the Ontario government? What would you say to an MPP? Mike, when you go back in September, these are the kinds of things I want you to be advocating for.
Well, I know what my need is. I would really love to get funding to finish the build of this. We still have to do all the trauma pieces to help people heal from that, the grief, the guilt, and everything else, right? So for me, my ask is really simple. I know this sounds like a lot of money, but I need $1 million to hire people to finish the build so we can roll it out. Because until we roll this out, we're going to be living in this current sort of inflationary nightmare without really an end in sight, because I don't believe immigration is going to do it for us, right? I believe that we have a homegrown population of people. If we simply healed them, we could heal them out of the costly shelter system. We could end homelessness, end addictions, not completely, but mostly, by preventing it in the first place. We could also reduce recidivism for incarceration, right? Because once you're healed, you're just going to work. You're going to want a life. You're going to want a future. You're going to build a life, right?
Yeah, that's a pretty positive and hopeful and inspiring way to end the conversation.
So if you have any friends in Parliament, please, ask them to send me a check.
I will do
get it done.
That one. I will. You know what though? I actually, in all seriousness, you know what? When you think of the size of a provincial budget, $1 million actually isn't that much money.
It's nothing. And when you think about what this thing is, yeah.
Yeah, and I would argue, I mean, you're on the Haldeman track. I'd argue that the wealth generated by the Haldeman track is like multitudes and multitudes in excess of $1 million. So yeah, I don't think you're asking for that much, to be honest.
No, and it's gonna change the world when we get it built.
That sounds good. Well, Stephen, I really always admire the work you're doing, just the vision and the positive, hopeful future that you're always outlining, and just the work at Anishnabeg Outreach does. And for anyone who has the opportunity to visit you in person, I would highly recommend it. It's a beautiful space, a space that you can feel the warmth and the healing and the connection to nature. But if you're unable to do that, I know people are looking forward to all the online resources as you launch out those tools to help people. So thank you for the good work you do, and thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you. And if people want to learn more, just go to our website, aocan.org. And we didn't even get a chance to talk about the second center of healing, which is in Guelph, that's open now.
Yes, and that's the one I really want to talk about.
Right?
We do one from there together. That would be fun.
That sounds good. Probably in the fall, because we're moving everything into there. It's going to be fully operational by then.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Once you're fully set up, we should get together and do something like this together live.
Sounds fabulous.
Okay, well, thank you, Stephen. I really appreciate it. Thanks for all your great work. And again, thanks for taking the time. And
Yeah,
everyone tuning in, thank you for joining us as well. Bye now.